In 1066, William of Normandy defeated Harold Godwinson and his Anglo-Saxon army. Many Anglo-Saxons did not want to be ruled by a French king, so therefore William of Normandy was always under threat of a rebellion. This video looks at 3 ways in which William tried to defend his kingdom.
When William arrived in England in 1066, he needed to defend his new land. He built many castles all over England. Most of them were made from wood because they had to be built quickly so that the king and his barons could defend themselves if they were attacked by rebels. They were known as Motte and Bailey castles.
Now, when visiting Castle Rising here in Norfolk, one of the things that we've got to just mention is that this castle was built in 1138. So this was after William of Normandy had died, and it was under the kingdom of King Stephen of England. It was actually built by a baron called William d'Albellini II, who married Henry I's widow. It is therefore slightly after the time of William of Normandy, but it still has the same idea. You can tell that the keep is actually modern for its time, in that it's not built of wood, it's built of stone. It does have some features of the Motte and Bailey castle though, namely here, and I need to be very careful because I'm stood on the motte, and this would have been very handy for the king's army to not only see approaching enemies, but they can also shoot their arrows down, pour hot boiling oil onto their enemies as well, which of course is flammable. Now, I know I said that there were 3 main ways in which William controlled England after 1066, but this leads us into a possible 4th way that you can include if you are writing this in an exam question, for example. So as well as shooting down towards enemies from the motte, William also told his army to round up and kill as many rebels as they possibly could, especially in the north of England, where they were seen as a bigger threat. William's men were instructed to burn down villages and to poison the land so that crops couldn't grow, causing a famine. Around 100,000 people in the north of England were believed to have died as a result. This is known as the Harrying of the North. Let's have a quick reminder of the other ways in which William controlled England. Firstly, we'll start with the feudal system.
So how did the feudal system work? Well, the king owned all the land, and he was at the top of the hierarchy. Below him were the barons. Now, the king gave them some land in return for money and men for the army. The king hoped to get loyalty from the barons so they wouldn't rebel against him. Below the barons were the knights. Now, the barons gave some of their land to the knights if they promised to fight when needed. So the barons had the job of raising an army for the king. The peasants were at the bottom of the hierarchy. The knights gave a few strips of land to the peasants, and the peasants had to share their produce with them. So they had to work very hard for the lord of the manor. They were not allowed to leave and were not free men. In the Middle Ages, anyone higher up the system than you was a lord, and of course the monarch had no one above them. What kept the system working was loyalty. Stay loyal and keep the land and wealth. Fail and your income was taken from you by your lord.
Now, I have to admit, even as a history teacher, that my motivations for visiting Castle Rising was not necessarily for the history of it at first. Back in the late 80s and early 90s, when I was a child, there was a television program called Knightmare that I grew up with, and it was an adventure game where 3 people would guide a blindfolded dungeoneer through the dungeons, and Castle Rising was used for a lot of the exterior and interior shots. And finally, the Domesday Book.
So what was the Domesday Book? The Domesday Book was a huge land survey commissioned by William to assess the extent of land and resources available in England. This helped him work out how many taxes he could demand from the people. Just like Judgment Day, Doomsday, no person could escape being recorded in the Doomsday Book. No one could escape paying taxes to William.
If you found this video helpful, please do subscribe to my channel and also do watch the other videos.
If you dare to, that is.